Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. I see people are coming in. We'll give it a couple of minutes before we start. Okay, we're up to nearly 500 coming close to it. Just while we're waiting, I'd just like to remind people who are attending the webinar today, if you haven't already done so, you might like to subscribe to the Charities Regulator e-zine. You'll find a link in the For Charities section on our website. It's published every 2 months and it contains details of new developments, areas of governance that we think that will be of interest to charity trustees and also to other people working or interested in the sector. The second thing I would just begin, a date for your diary, is this year's Charity Trustees Week will take place from the 13th to the 17th of November. Those of you who may be familiar with it already will know that it's a celebration of the amazing work that charity trustees do, and we really recognise the additional responsibilities that you volunteers take on as charity trustees. And this is a week of events, including a lot of online events that are organised by ourselves, the Charities Regulator, along with our partners on the steering committee, Carmichael, Charities Institute, Board Match, Docus, Pubble, The Wheel and Volunteer Ireland. And again, you'll find information on Charity Trustees Week on our website. And there's a particular section underneath. If you scroll down under the For Charity section, you'll see it there. And there's a calendar there of the events that are there. And over the next coming weeks, we'll be adding more links to that so you can actually book online through the interactive calendar. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on preparing to submit your charity's annual report to the Charities Regulator. I'm joined today by my colleagues Megan Gill and Yelena Krushenko. And before we get into the webinar proper, just a little bit of housekeeping that I'd like to run through. First, this webinar is being recorded. Secondly, slides will be shared with everyone who's registered for this event, so you can keep and take notes. We will also be sharing the slides after the event with everybody who has registered. Captions are available. So if you want to turn on captions, there is a Show Captions button at the bottom of the toolbar, and just click on that. We hope we will cover everything in the slides today, but no doubt there will be some questions that people will have. We would ask you to submit your questions through the Q&A button. We have a team on standby, and they will answer questions throughout the webinar, written questions. But as well as that, at the end of the webinar, Megan and Yelena will also be joined by Mandy Osborne. And Mandy will answer any questions you may have with regards to classification. Just a reminder, we won't answer any specific questions with regards to an individual charity on this webinar. The questions we'll answer will be more general ones, but if you do have a specific question about your charity, we'd ask you not to share any information, in the forum, but to contact us either through info@charitiesregulator.ie or through your My account on the website. So without further ado, I will hand over to my colleague Megan Gill, who's head of registration here at the Charities Regulator.
Thank you, Ger, and welcome to everybody. And thank you for joining us here today. What you'll learn from this webinar is what is the annual report and what is required from you, why you must submit it and the consequences if you do not, where it is displayed on the public register and how to access and submit it. So why must you submit an annual report? Well, first and foremost, it is the law. The number of charities filing their annual report on time continues to fall. Only 59% of charities met the legal requirements of filing an annual report with the Charities Regulator, a decrease of 5% compared to 2021. Annual reports are published on the Public Register of Charities, providing a vital window into the charity's work for the general public and for potential donors and volunteers. And for the many charities that file on time, it demonstrates a commitment to transparency and accountability to their supporters and to the wider public. In the interest of the public and out of fairness to the majority of charities that submit their annual report on time each year, we have signalled to the sector that we will deal decisively with those charities that have repeatedly failed to file annual reports in a timely manner. The Charities Regulator is currently engaged in a targeted compliance and enforcement initiative in order to bring non-compliant charities into compliance. Possible enforcement action includes the prosecution of the charity and the individual trustees, and/or the removal of the charity from the Register of Charities. Annual reports are due 10 months after your charity's financial end-of-year date. For example, if your charity's financial end-of-year date is the 31st of December, the annual report is due on and before the 31st of October of the following year. The power of information. Annual reports are more than information about your individual charity. They provide trust and confidence to the wider sector and provide vital data on the sector. This is demonstrated in our report published on Monday, The Social and Economic Impact of Registered Charities in Ireland 2023. This was compiled from information submitted by over 6,000 charities, and it provided via their annual reports, and it provided valuable insights into the sector for the public, the sector itself, policymakers, and the government. For example, from this report, we were able to determine that there is over 600,000, 48,000 people who volunteer with charities. The total direct expenditure by Irish charities is estimated as being worth 18.6 billion, and the total income declared by the over 6,000 charities was 19.7 billion. We recognise the report can only be improved by the classification of charities, and it is in the charity's best interest, both collectively and individually, to classify their charities on the register. This can be done through the portal and will only take a charity a couple of minutes to complete. Annual reporting, the Governance Code, and classification are all linked to trust and confidence and supports the transparency of the sector. In fact, our data shows that 8 out of 10 Irish people believe that having trust and confidence in a charity was very important when deciding to donate. When you submit an annual report, where is the information displayed? The information is displayed on our website on the Register of Charities. This has been visited over 143,000 times this year, and we are taking a number of initiatives to bring the public's awareness to it, to include the Check a Charity campaign to encourage giving in confidence. The register is an independent verification of your charitable status. It contains information from your annual report. It is the authoritative source for information for service users, donors, the wider public, and the media. It demonstrates a charity's accountability and transparency, and it plays a very important role in increasing public trust and confidence in registered charities. So what is required of you, and what information is needed in order to complete the annual report? First of all, as part of the annual report, you'll be asked about your charity's compliance with the Charities Governance Code. But it's very important to remember that the submission of the annual report is a legal requirement, and any issues that you may have with completing the Charities Governance Code should not preclude you from submitting your annual report. In your annual report, you will need to describe your charity's activity during the reporting period. And particular care should be taken to demonstrate that your charity has undertaken activities in further of its charitable purposes. For example, a charity with the purpose of prevention or relief of suffering of animals should make it clear from the description of their activities that they are actively and exclusively pursuing this purpose. Where a charity has more than one charitable purpose, it should be able to demonstrate that the pursuit of each purpose. You will be required to provide us with details of your charity's gross income and expenditure, and this includes sources of your charity's income. You will also be required to provide us information regarding your employees and the number of volunteers. Furthermore, you'll be required to supply information on international transfers. Now I'd like to turn to how you actually submit your annual report. You can submit the annual report through our portal, My Account. To access my account, you need a customer account linked to your charity's account. How do you access your account? These are questions that you should ask yourselves after this webinar. Do you have a customer account? Do you know who has access to your customer account? Do you know your login name? And do you know your password? It's very important not to allow these very, very easily fixed technical issues to prevent you from issuing your annual report. So we'd ask after this webinar that you log into your account and ensure that you have these details up to date and correct. And if you don't, seek to remedy that. We have a wide range of helpful resources to help you to do this, to access the account and submit your annual report. Our step-by-step guide provides a visual overview, while our how-to video takes you through each stage of the process. Our user guide for charity also offers guidance, and all of these can be found at our website and should assist you in accessing your account. There are 3 common issues that people encounter when trying to access their account. One is that they've forgotten their password, another that they've forgotten their username, and a third is that the person who's trying to log the annual report doesn't actually have the required access to the charity's account. And as on the previous slide, there is a range of resources available to you to remedy these issues, particularly with your password and username and how to become an authorized filer. So we would direct you to our website in the first instance to try and resolve these issues that you may have. And last but not least, we must remember that submitting the annual report is required by law. The regulator does not have any power under the Act to grant extensions. And please note that any document you wish to send us should be uploaded through the online portal. And there is a 5 megabyte size restriction on uploading any files. I'd encourage you to check your access to my account today. And remember that October the 30th is a bank holiday. Thank you very much for your time. And I'm just going to pass you over to my colleague, Yelena, who's going to go through the Charities Governance Code.
Thank you, Megan. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Yelena Grushenko, and I work in the Compliance and Enforcement section in the Charities Regulator. So the purpose of my presentation is to explain how to declare your compliance status with the Charities Governance Code and how to keep your Governance Code declaration up to date. Charity trustees are responsible for the control and management of the charity and for making sure that the charity works to achieve its charity's purposes. It's important that you know what your legal duties and responsibilities are and understand what you're expected to do. The Charities Governance Code is designed to help charity trustees to meet their legal duties under the Charities Act 2009 and to ensure that the charities for which they are responsible are well run. The Charities Governance Code comprises of 6 principles. Each principle has core standards that apply to all charities, and there are also additional standards for more complex charities. Compliance with the Charities Governance Code is declared as part of your annual report. When you log in to file your annual report, compliance with the Charities Governance Code is the first section you will see. You will need to answer a couple of questions, and these questions will depend on your compliance status. So make sure that you're clear what your Charities Governance Code compliance status is. And if your charity is not in compliance, make sure that you know the reason for this. If your charity is in full compliance, if you declare that your charity is in full compliance, your declaration will be displayed on the Register of Charities. If your charity is in partial compliance, you will have to select the standards the charity is not compliant with and provide reasons for non-compliance. And then you will have an option to have that declaration to be visible on the Register of Charities. And if you select that option, then your compliance status, the standards you're not compliant with, and the reasons for non-compliance will be visible on the Register of Charities. So be mindful of that when you complete your governance code declaration. And if you declare that the charity is not in compliance, it's not currently displayed on the Register of Charities, but that might change shortly. There is also prefers not to say option, and this should only be used as a placeholder in exceptional circumstances. For example, maybe you don't have sufficient information to complete the governance code section of the annual report, and so that the submission of the annual report is not delayed, you may wish to select this option, but then you'll have to amend it at a later stage as soon as possible. And there is a user guide available on the website to help you with this. You have to ensure that your compliance record form is fully completed before you declare that your charity is in full compliance with the code. And those who completed the compliance record form last year, please make sure that the form has been reviewed and updated as appropriate by the charity trustees. I would like to point out as well that any work you're doing in relation to the Charities Governance Code should not delay the submission of your annual report. It is a legal requirement that your annual reports are filed on time. And as Megan pointed out in her presentation, failure to do so may result in the charity being deregistered on the Register of Charities, and it may also result in the prosecution of the charity and/or the charity trustees. If you are unable to declare full compliance at the time of submission of your annual report, you can still submit your annual report and provide reasons for non-compliance with the code. And once your charity is in full compliance, you can update your declaration, and your declaration can be updated at any time following the submission of your annual report. We have a sample completed compliance record form on the website. There's one available for complex charities and also one for non-complex charities. And this is a snapshot of it. So for each standard, you'll have to set out the actions you have taken to meet the standard, and also the evidence to support your actions. I suppose the level of details depend. Each charity has a different approach, and some charities provide a couple of lines. Some charities provide a lot of details. It's up to yourselves, really. And what I've seen as well in some instances, charities complete the compliance record form, but they don't set out the actions they're taking. They just select complete or just tick a box. This wouldn't be acceptable. You have to set out the actions you are taking and the evidence that you have. Charities are not, they don't have to submit, they don't need to submit their compliance record form with the annual report, but you have to make sure that you keep your compliance record form on file. And as part of our compliance monitoring program for the Charities Governance Code, your charity may be requested to provide its completed compliance record form and some other related documentation as appropriate, or provide reasons for non-compliance. And this is done on a random basis. It is expected that all charities, regardless of their size and complexity, have proper governance standards in place. And some of it is quite basic. And for example, your charity's governing document, every charity trustees should have an up-to-date copy of the governing document. It sets out the charity's purpose and how it operates, and you must ensure that you know what it says and understand what that means. Make sure that your charity complies with your governing document, and when planning what the charity will do, make sure that the plans fit with the governing document, with what the governing document says you can do. Make sure that you hold regular board meetings and any decisions are properly recorded in the minutes. Charity trustees have collective responsibility for running the charity. Meetings are the best way to make decisions and make sure that you keep all of the charity trustees informed. It's important that trustees prepare well for board meetings. It helps if the agenda and papers are circulated to all charity trustees several days in advance, so that they can be read and considered before the meeting. And effective boards will always be looking for ways to improve. Regular reviews of board meetings, of individual charity trustees, and overall board performance are essential for this. Charity finances should be discussed at every meeting. Make sure that you are getting financial updates on a regular basis and that these are well explained. Simple enough so that everyone can understand and any financial issues are clearly flagged. All of the charity trustees have responsibility for charity finances, regardless of your background. And as charity trustees, it's important that you have a basic understanding of the charity finances and can quickly identify if there are any problems, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Also, you have to make sure that you protect the charity's resources and that you do not put the assets of the charity at risk. So you have to make sure that there are proper financial controls in place. And we have a very good guidance on internal financial controls for charity. And I would encourage you to look at that document. As charity trustees, you should assess any potential risks and manage any conflicts of interest. Risks is something that should be considered at least annually by the board, and all trustees must be clear who will take the lead in the event of a crisis. And conflicts of interest should be a standing item at every meeting, and there should be a conflicts of interest policy that says what charity trustees should do if there is a conflict of interest. And for example, any charity trustees who has a conflict of interest is not involved in the decision, and this action should be clearly documented in the minutes. And if you are doing all of this, you're nearly there in terms of the Charities Governance Code. And as you can see, some of this is some of it is quite basic that we would expect from all charities. And finally, just to finish it off, we have recently published a report in which we set out our key findings from an analysis of declarations of compliance submitted in 2022. And I have included some statistics from this report on this slide. And as you can see, 73% of charities that submitted their declaration of compliance with the Charities Governance Code said that they were in full compliance with the code, and that's a slight increase from 2021, when 69% of charities declared that they were in full compliance with the code. So that's the end of my presentation. As I said, there is guidance available on the website. There's actually quite a lot of information on the website in relation to the annual reports, the Charities Governance Code, and other guidance that we would encourage charities to look at. Thank you.
Thank you again very much. We had a very strong attendance today. Hope you found it useful, and keep an eye on our website for details of further webinars, and not to forget Charity Trustees Week, which is coming up on the 13th of November. Thank you all.